Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, where this week I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. No, of course I am. We're going to answer 2 questions, just like we always do. And thankfully, we've got 2 crackers in from our listeners this week. If you'd like to submit your own, really easy for you to do so.
It certainly is. You get your telephone out and you call 013 808 00035, or probably on your telephone as well, you can go to the website, thepropertyhub.net/ask. That's thepropertyhub.net/ask. Either way, super simple. Leave us a question. That's what these 2 fine human beings have done. First up is Lisa.
Hi, Rob and Rob. This is Lisa. I'd just like to say thank you very much for the podcast. It's been really, really helpful. I've got 3 rental properties and I'm in the process of trying to buy my 4th. And each time I've bought a new property, it's been through refinancing and releasing equity on one or more of the existing portfolio. The problem is that now that the mortgage changes are coming into effect, it's much harder to do that on LTV value alone. And so the amount that I can raise is getting less each time. I'd like to keep buying, but I'm not sure how to raise the deposit now. Is it just a matter of saving up, or are there other options that might be out there?
Thanks, Lisa. Feel your pain. The mortgage changes are hurting a lot of people right now, particularly in the Southeast. So I appreciate you can't answer back, but I'm going to take a stab and say that you're doing this refurb and refinance model in the Southeast. The reason I suggest that is because it's all about the rent. So for people who don't know, mortgages for buy-to-let are a little stricter than they were, say, a year ago. Now, the mortgage companies will look at the affordability ratios between the rent you receive and the amount you have to pay, and they've increased them. So if your property isn't particularly high yielding, then it can be a challenge to get a mortgage. But this really is only hurting people in the Southeast. So I'm going to assume that your property's in the Southeast. So you've got 3 options. You might not like any of them, but here they are. The first option is, if you're going to continue to do this in the Southeast, is find an area that yields well. So it's probably a cheaper area in the Southeast. Search Rightmove, search Zoopla, and check out where you feel the best yielding properties are. Speak to people at meetups as well. We do plenty of those, thepropertyhub.net/meetup. Go to meetups around the Southeast and ask people, where are you investing? Where are you doing this right now? Where are you seeing the best yields? Gather that data and then possibly look to move slightly from where you are. Hopefully it's not too far away from home. Alternatively, you can look up north, where it really doesn't hurt people at all because the yields are far superior than the south because the affordability is a lot better there. Now, that may be a stretch if you're in the Southeast and you're wanting to do stuff in the north if you're hands-on. But if you've done this remotely before, you might be comfortable with that. Third, and probably the most boring, the least fun and the least desirable to you, is good old saving. Yes, it's how most people do it. Most people haven't got the skills to refurb like you have, and I applaud you for that. You can make it work, you just got to move area, or you got to do the saving bit. Up to you, but you still have options, but you're going to have to change your model slightly.
Yep, absolutely. And if you are sort of shouting into your phone at the moment, but I won't get the capital growth up north, I think you might be surprised. A lot of people think that as soon as you sort of go north of Birmingham, you're just not going to have capital growth, because for the last 10 years, there's been a lot more capital growth in the Southeast, but that doesn't mean it's going to carry on forever. And the latest data shows that prices are actually going faster in the north than in the south. So I don't know if that's something that you're concerned about, but if it is, maybe not so much so. And yes, it is a pain if you're going to get forced out of your area. Maybe not as far as the north, but if you are going to get forced out of your area, then yes, that's not ideal. But don't undervalue the skills that you've developed. If you've got a model that works, you just have to pick that model up and move it a little bit. And if that model does mean that you can progress more quickly than if you were just saving up, then that's a model that's worth clinging on to. Okay, so thank you for that question, Lisa. And thanks also to James, who asked our next question.
Hi, Rob and Rob. My name's James. Thanks for the great podcast. Love it. I've been listening for a long while now. I'm actually a solicitor in Kent, and I specialise in property. So obviously seeing a lot of my clients doing buy-to-lets and listening to your podcast made me make the decision last year to buy my first. So I bought a mixed-use property with 2 retail units on the bottom and 2 flats above. But I'm getting itchy feet, and I just wanted to know about your strategies and what you use for expansion and expanding your portfolio, whether you wait for the property to rise by a certain amount of value first before you remortgage to unlock your deposit for the next project, or how you go about it. So any thoughts would be great. Thanks very much. Bye.
Oh, they're linked, Rob. It's like we put these two questions together.
It is. I broke out in a cold sweat when he said that I'm a solicitor specialising in property. The things I've said about property solicitors on this podcast over the last few years. So thank you, James, not just for the question, but also for still listening to us. Congratulations on that first investment. In terms of financing future investments, we've just heard a couple of options. One is refurbing and refinancing. The other is just boring old saving. I speak for myself here, but I think it's the same for you, Rob. I fund investments just by boring old saving, unfortunately. It's not a very interesting answer, but it's true. It's actually been a very long time since I've done any refinancing to raise further funds. I've just been sort of letting the mortgages stay what they are and funded acquisitions through savings. And I think it illustrates a general point, really, which is that you can use property to generate wealth, or you can use property to store wealth. And they are two different things, and they involve two different approaches. So what Lisa is talking about is generating wealth. So by doing a refurb, she's adding value in excess of what was spent on the refurb, therefore creating equity, creating wealth. What someone like I would do is buy a property with wealth that has been generated elsewhere and just store it in property and get a return from it. Hopefully buy it for a little bit less than it's worth, so building in some equity there, but otherwise just sit on it for the growth and for the rental income. It's not very exciting, but it works. Both ways work. The key is working out which strategy makes the most sense for you.
Yeah, it's frustrating, James. I am similar to Rob. The majority of my properties I've funded through savings, although I have refinanced a few. And that's really what the snowball effect is. We talk about it and use it in different ways, but my take on the property snowball is you start your portfolio and you're at the top of the hill. It's a small snowball and it doesn't really seem much. But over time, that hill, that's your lifespan of your portfolio. It gets bigger and bigger. The first one might be savings, but then after you get to your third one, the first one has gone up enough that you can then refinance that one and buy the next one. And then so on. You can see how this would snowball quite quickly, that ones that you bought a few years back start to go up and then you can take money out. A way to accelerate that snowball is either to refurb, like Lisa did, or buy below market value, like Rob and I like to do. So there's different ways of doing it. I personally only refinance occasionally on some of my properties, but that's a way of accelerating it. I know plenty of people I work with take that very approach. So a few different options. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, it's slow in the beginning, but I promise you it does speed up over time. Patience is the key.
All right. So big thanks to Lisa and to James for those really interesting questions. We love your questions because they allow us to get into all these areas and look at things from all these angles that we wouldn't otherwise do in the normal course of the podcast. When left to our own devices, there are themes we hit all the time, but when you get involved, you force us to really think about things in a different way, and that adds value, not just for you, the person whose question's getting answered, but for everyone. If you've been thinking about it for a while, make today the day that you get that question in. Remember 013 808 0035 or go to thepropertyhub.net/ask.
Or a service, save it in your phone, and then whenever you've got a property question, you take your phone out, put it on speed dial even, click it, ask your question, and you know at some point in the future, unless it's not a silly question, it's going to get answered. So that's 013 808 0035. Leave us a question, and you'll hear your answer soon. And of course, we'll be back soon with the Property Podcast and Ask Rob and Rob next Tuesday. So until then, everyone, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.